Penny, where are you going?
I'm going drinking at Moe's.
What does Moe's have that I don't have?
The ability to make me happy.
Fuck you.
It's drinking at Moe's and it's coming up right now.
All right. So I got Andrew Jassick here. Guys, that was one of the people responsible for the promotion that ran my first ever independent wrestling show, New Wave Pro. I remember it being the actual first show I went to for your promotion. I believe it was a Perkins Elementary School fundraiser or a tidal wave. Back, I'm wanting to say 2009, maybe.
Sure, that sounds about right, yeah.
But yeah, no, that got me started, and then ended up meeting, I believe it was Jason Strife at SoCal Pro, and then he told me about the promotion he had up here, and then here I am. I'm friends with both of the promoters up here. The guy that introduced me to my wife is a wrestler that we made my best man. The guy that runs one promotion ended up, we convinced him to get ordained, and he officiated. But thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, of course. No, yeah, we've known each other for a little bit, so it's about time. We kind of, I don't even think we've had it so much as a phone call, so it's exciting to do something like this.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think the most we might have done is I might have hopped into one of the few that I've caught TikTok lives of yours.
Oh yeah. That was the few that you caught was like the few that I've done. I hate going live. I hate it. So bad at it.
The first couple of these that I've done, I actually did where I did TikTok live, and then I just converted it over.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I after the little bit of the issue there I had where I got put on that 24-hour posting ban, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go straight from my phone and not worry about the TikTok live anymore.
Yeah, I never had an issue. I've gotten a 24-hour posting ban, but never from like a live incident. But the way TikTok works is if you accumulate too many videos that are restricted for whatever reason, then they'll just automatically they'll give you like a 24-hour ban, like a 2-week ban, and then I think finally then your account gets discarded. So I keep close.
Yeah.
Right now I'm just shadow banned, so that's exciting. So at least there's no posting limitations.
Yeah. No, I've been there before, and this was my first real posting ban, so it was like weird because they were both that I got, both of the ones I got right close to each other were both blind reaction videos that the original video
it's still up. Yeah.
So it's like, what the hell?
I hate that. It's weird because what happens is this is what I can gather, because believe me, I've had multiple, I want to say by now, probably at least a dozen or so videos that have been removed. And what happens is when multiple people report it, it automatically gets removed, and then they wait for an appeal process. So when you appeal, then somebody actually at TikTok will view it and then determine whether or not it's eligible to be removed or whatever the case is. But yeah, it's total BS, because it doesn't give you any sort of justice when the original video that you're just looking at is still up there, right? So why are you getting removed? Yeah. So I don't know. TikTok is weird. It's funky sometimes, especially if you're in the creator fund, because I get, I'm in the creator fund, and it seems like when I said yes to the creator fund, out of nowhere, my views started dropping. And then more and more videos became like reported and got removed or whatever. It's because they don't want to pay you. So they're dirtbags over there, man. It's crazy.
I'm just shy, maybe like little over 1,000 left, and then I'm finally there. But yeah, I don't even know with all of that if I'd even want to be a part of it.
Yeah, the reason I like, the only reason I like the whole platform is just because it grows my potential and my reach to kind of get out to more people. So I'm very surprised by how much my videos have taken off and how many views I've gotten and how many followers I have. It's incredible. And then because of that, like my Instagram started like, you know, kind of popping off a little bit recently too. So, and then people are reaching out to me to like do sponsored videos, and it's nuts. Yeah.
You definitely blew past me on there.
Did, yeah, out of nowhere. And Mikey O'Shea, I'm sure you know who Mikey O'Shea. I would assume you know who Mikey O'Shea is.
Yeah.
I remember I was backstage with him at a Championship Wrestling from Hollywood show, and this is right around the time we both started TikToks, and I was super excited because like I got 100 followers, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got 500." I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy." You know, I'll catch up to him. No worries. And then when I got 500, he had like 2,000. And now that I have like, you know, 89,000, he has over 200,000 followers. It's nuts. And some people you just don't expect it, but some people, yeah, they blow up and they go crazy on that thing. And he does like really, really well. He gets an incredible amount of engagement from his audience. And that's the trick with TikTok is you have to make sure your videos are engaging enough where people will comment on it, or they'll want to share it, whatever the case is. So that's why I don't hop on like trends or anything, because that's great to get like, you know, an immediate amount of views, but you won't get a lot of engagement because people are always seeing that stuff, right? Yeah. So my thought process is to do something that a lot of people, or that majority of people aren't doing on TikTok, and that's just have this kind of this character where my wife just trashes me all the time, and for some reason it works. You know, yeah. It's really good. Yeah.
Yep. Some of those are pretty fucking hilarious.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's funny too, because I see so many people that will either like try to if they're following me, they'll send me a direct message, or if not, they'll put it in the comments. I've had people email me saying, "Hey, you're in a toxic relationship, you need to get out of that," and they don't understand, like, you know, we're just trolling you, man. Like, you know, all the stuff that she's saying to me, like I wrote that. You know, that was planned. You know, that video was recorded like a week ago, and it's just in my drafts. You know, you're just seeing it now. So that's pretty funny. It's awesome, man. And I'm 39 years old, so it's you know, I'm way past the age of your typical TikTok. You know what I mean? Like we're about the same age, right? So I'm way past the age where you should be on TikTok. You know, having some sort of a following or any kind of like recognition or whatever. But like, I'm destroying it, man. I'm doing good.
That's the bit that I do. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something he had a hand in.
Yeah, so everything. There's literally not there's a few ideas that we kind of come up together where she's like, "Oh, it'd be funny if I said this," and I'm like, "Okay, let's try that." And I know one of them went real viral. One of them that she came up with one with I don't know if you saw. There's one where I have like a McDonald's logo in my hat.
Yeah.
Okay, and she came up with that. She sent me the original video. Let's do this, and I'm like, okay, it's not going to be funny, but we'll try it. You know, but yeah, it got like 8 million views. It's crazy.
Yeah, that one was funny.
Yeah, it's fun. Now I love it, man. It's cool practice.
All right, so one thing I like to ask everybody I talk to for this: what got you started with wrestling as a fan and as a wrestler?
I was, let's see. I've been into wrestling, I want to say probably since I was 5 years old. I remember the first instance that I remember of wrestling that really got me hooked on it was there was this angle with Earthquake and Jake the Snake Roberts. And Earthquake sat on the snake and killed it. And I remember seeing the look on Jake Roberts' face when he looked in the bag and he started crying. You know what I mean? And I'm a kid. I'm super naive to this whole thing. So I didn't know if it was all like, you know, a ruse. So I'm just thinking like, what a horrible human being you have to be to do that to this poor defenseless animal. And so I watched it specifically then so I can see Jake Roberts get his revenge on Earthquake. And then around that story encompassed all these other storylines that I was just like, wow, I hope that guy gets that guy and this guy gets that guy. And this, this is what's going to happen. And I would say that probably around like when I found out that it was kind of all a ruse, it made me appreciate it more, right? Because I always go back, even when I was like, and I'm sure we'll probably touch on the fact of, I was doing a school for a while. I always go back when I talk to people that are just coming into the business. I say, if you're going to be able to tell a story, whether it be in the ring or promos, whatever the case is, right? Then you have to make somebody feel like I felt as 5 years old watching this snake get squashed, right? They have to believe it, and they have to be they have to have some sort of, I don't know, connection to the good guy, right? So when I got older and realized it was a ruse, I appreciated it more because I realized that these people were making me feel feelings that, they weren't really like that. Like, these are really talented individuals. And it was crazy to me that the fact that I was excited about, when I grew up and like was a teenager, it was when the Attitude Era came out, right? Yeah. And I felt like I was very lucky. I was very fortunate to be in this age group of wrestling where wrestling grew up with me, right? And so like nowadays, I don't watch the product anymore because wrestling kind of grew down. It's now made for, kids or whatever, or a little bit younger audiences. So it didn't grow up to me all the way to my late 30s, but I was fortunate enough to have it grow up with me. And so I always had this connection to it where I can still have some sort of emotion towards storylines and angles and stuff that was going on with it. And so I remember at my, I want to say it was sixth grade graduation or something like that. Everybody got up and they said what they wanted to be in the future. Right. And I said, hi, my name is Andy, and I want to be a ring announcer in the future. Everybody, everybody clapped or whatever, but I know there was like people there like snickering, like that's the most bizarre job you'd ever want. Right. And I remember like practicing, I would practice promos and stuff in my bathroom. I remember this vividly, I was like sixth grade. I practiced promos and stuff in my bathroom mirror. And I'm like, I got a pretty good voice, like, and I'm not in shape to be a wrestler. So maybe I can just be like this ring announcer, maybe I can introduce people to the ring. And so I studied people like the Fink and even like Michael Buffer in boxing and stuff. I was like, this is the job for me. And so when I reached out to somebody that was running a professional wrestling school, my initial thought was, I'd like to ring announce for you. And then he's like, well, just come by the school and, try out or whatever. And this is something you don't really understand when you go to school is they'll do anything they can to get you to come to the school. Right. Oh yeah, sure. We got spots open for you. Come on out, check out the school. And then they'll pitch you like, okay, it's $250 a week. And I said, okay, well, as long as I'm doing that, I might as well learn how to wrestle. So I started to train. And I want to say I was training for like 6 months before I got like my first match. And it was with the owner's son. In I want to say it was Van Nuys, California. It was in a high school. And I was on the show, and funny enough, John Cena was on that show. That's how I first met John Cena. It was funny too, because I remember saying to somebody else in the locker room, I was like, man, I'd love to wrestle that guy one day. And they're like, oh, don't do that. He's like, he's full of like roid rage, and he's known to hurt people and stuff. I don't know if that's true, but it seemed true at the time. I was just like, okay, I don't want to screw with that guy. But I fell in love with it. After I got my first match and I felt like really comfortable, I was a shits in the ring. It couldn't work. I wasn't very talented at all. But for some reason, I never felt scared or had any kind of trepidation to mess with the audience. And I was like, now, and this all goes back to this thing with Jake Snake Roberts and Earthquake, right? I'm like, I can make these people feel like I felt, you know what I mean? Like, I can be the bad guy. So I was just like, as long as I can be the bad guy, then I'll stick with wrestling. And I did. I stuck with wrestling all the way to, I want to say 2017, I think is my last match. Might have been, or no, I can't remember. But yeah, like off and on, probably about 15, 16 years. I was in wrestling. Fell in love with it, man. Sorry about the long story, but that's kind of how I fell in love and wanted to pursue wrestling.
Yeah, no, that like you said with wrestling, the real good ones can always suspend your disbelief in a way, I guess. Like, especially like for guys our age, you can be like, I know it's the work,
right?
that guy's making me wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. CM Punk was really good at that when he did
Oh.
his little, with his pipe bomb and everything. It was magic to see that. And you wondered how much of that was like off the cuff and wasn't supposed to be seen. And especially after that promo, when they cut his mic off and stuff, that was the first time in years I was just like, this is real. This is legit. Obviously now years down the line, it's totally BS, but it's crazy to make it do that to you. Yeah, man, that's love it. That's wrestling is the most unique thing in the world. It really is. It is a live theater drama that really kind of, if they're good at it, will really make you wonder whether or not they're really having this animosity towards each other. It's a great feeling. Great feeling.
I've been lucky enough to be friends with a handful that really, once that camera's on them, boy, like them talking to me before the show and when the camera, like night and day. Like I remember one time, one of my good friends wearing a hat sitting there, and he just comes over, knocks it off my head. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I thought we were cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a second. Oh, wait.
That's okay when they're your friends. That I always try to pick on my friends too. If they're ever at shows, I always try to mess with my friends. But yeah, I say the same thing too, is that even when I was doing the school and I was teaching kids, how to interact with the crowd or whatever, Mick Foley made a really good point in his book when he was talking about his first book, when he said, in order for you to be a true bad guy, you have to empathize and believe that the bad guy's way of thinking is right. So you have to put yourself in that mindset. You don't act, right? You don't go out there and play a character. You become that. You encompass that mindset and that animosity, whatever they're feeling, right? That's what you believe when you go out that curtain. And it's a little truth. When my music hit and I would go out the curtain, I would hate people. And I would, in the back of my mind, I'm like, why aren't they cheering for me? You know what I mean? Don't they understand how I'm feeling right now? And it's great because, you really kind of get a chance to relive that feeling as when you were kids, when you were in, disbelief from somebody else, but you get to do that to yourself,
Oh, definitely.
And made kids cry and stuff. And it's great.
Oh,
it's a great thing. I had a tally.
Yeah. I definitely remember more so after I moved back here to Nebraska that I would pay attention for videos of your matches as they'd come up, and I remember laughing my ass off when you'd go and you'd just be right behind a kid and
yeah, it's great. And you think about it, right? Is that a lot of wrestlers don't do that, right? Because you're crossing this line.
Yeah.
Right. You're kind of, you know what I mean? Because it's supposed to be a show. Right. But doesn't that get the audience involved so much more if they genuinely hate you? Right. Doesn't that do the match a service? Right. And there's to me, there's a lot of lines that I will end up crossing. Right. There's a limit. Right. But there's a lot of lines I will kind of, I'll teeter on because I want that audience to be involved in that match, in that story, right? And not for me, right? It's great, it's a nice little ego boost for me, I'm sure. But really, what I'm doing is I'm getting the good guy over, right? Yeah. I want them to love him. That's my job. As a bad guy, that's your job, is to get the audience to love the good guy, right? And so that's why it's important to kind of do things like that, in my opinion, right? And a lot of people might disagree. But I will say that pushing those boundaries is what makes wrestling really, really good.
Yeah, no, you said it perfectly. When you're the bad guy, you want a reaction regardless, bad guy, good guy. But you want, as the bad guy, to have that crowd hate you so much that they'll cheer their asses off for that good guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because anybody can go in, right, and say, oh, this town sucks, right? Or a lot of bad guys will do the Rick Rude ripoff, like what I'd like to have now, or whatever the case is. It's like, it's been done.
Yeah.
right? You look at promos, right? Promos are almost the same thing over and over too. It's the same exact thing. Everybody emphasis on a couple things. At the end of the promo, they'll always say 1, 2, 3 all the time. Every promo you watch, I'm going to get you 1, 2, 3. At least with our amateur promoters, right? They'll always say something like that. Or they'll also say things like, when the dust settles and the ice melts, there's no water left in the pool, and you know what, the lights are on but nobody's home, and all this stuff. They'll always say the exact same thing over and over, right? But really, is that getting your match over? Is it getting your character over, right? What have you told me about you? Not about what you just did or what you're going to do in the ring. Why it's important that I watch that, right? Because every time I'd ever do a promo, right, it was always left in like a little bit of a shroud of mystery. It's just like, I'm going to go in and I have this ace in the hole. I have this trick up my sleeve, and you're not going to know what it is until I get there. Even if it was bullshit, even if I didn't have anything like that going into the match, even though the match wasn't written like that, I'd always say something like that. Get people to say, oh, I wonder what he's going to do. You know what I mean? It's important. You know, it really is. It's important to keep that crowd interested. So,
yeah. Especially those promos before the shows, you get the people wondering, I want to go to that show so I can see if he's really going to do.
Right. A promo is, you know, it's to put the match over, and the match is to put the promo over in this never ending cycle.
Yeah.
You think about it. If there was ever resolution in wrestling altogether, if there was ever resolution, there'd be no more wrestling. There's no reason to go to the next show. Right.
Yeah.
So something always has to leave you wanting a little bit more. Always, every single time. So give me something that leaves me wanting more, that's going to invest me in making sure I don't miss it, right? So that's why I love angles where they like push like a mystery opponent or a surprise return or something, any promotion, right? I love things like that because it keeps me guessing and it makes me wonder. And I want to see it live, and I'm going to be there when it happens, and so on and so forth. But yeah, to me, wrestling is there's a lot of details that go into making a wrestling show or a wrestling angle, right? But the formula isn't hard. It's not. All you have to do is leave them wanting more at the end. And how you write that in is how you write that in. But for anybody watching this who might be fans of wrestling or might be interested in getting into wrestling, right? The best advice I could ever give anybody is make me want to see you, right? Make me want to see you, whether it be your gear, your entrance, the actual matches or whatever. But make me want to see you again, right? That's the whole idea, is to make me want to see you. Because if nobody's buying tickets, then you're not getting paid, right? There's no point in having a show.
Yeah, no, definitely. Whether you're the good guy that you're like, I want to go cheer on that person, or you're the bad guy and you're like, you know what, I'll pay money to see that guy get his ass kicked.
Right. Yep. That's the whole idea, man. You sell tickets. You know, it's a work, and it's always been a carnival business where they do, there's shady tactics that go on to make people buy tickets. And today's wrestling, and the biggest company in the world is no different. It's a ruse to get you to buy tickets every single time. This WrestleMania that's going on this weekend, right, is promoted as this big 2-day event, right? A couple of years ago, it was this 2-day event. Well, why is it a 2-day event? I went to several WrestleManias, and it was a 1-day event. It was just as good. Oh, it's 2 days. It must be really good. Must be a lot of stuff in there. You know what I mean? So you want to see that. It's a ruse, right? It's a gimmick to get pay-per-view buys or Peacock subscriptions or whatever the app is now.
And switch. But yeah, totally agree with you. So one thing people that watch this might not know about you, and well, something that you and I have in common, being a Navy veteran. One I like to ask, and I'm gonna ask the veterans that I end up talking to, what had you enlist?
So I remember being in, it was funny because it was almost coincidental. I remember being in high school, and I had no plans outside of high school. Nothing. I had no idea where I was going to go in life. The plan was at that time, or maybe I'll make it in wrestling, maybe I'll open my own school. make my living that way. But there was nothing really guaranteed. I had no interest in going to college. There were no trades that I was interested in doing. All I ever wanted to do is be some sort of entertainer in some form or fashion. I wanted to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be in front of big groups of people. That's all I ever wanted to do. So I remember thinking, like, realistically, like, I'm about to drop out of high school. Like, my grades are crap. School's not interesting to me. I can't do anything as far as piquing my interest in anything that I'm failing in. Right. So, at this point, I got nowhere to go. So, and it was like around that time that this Navy recruiter came into my classroom and talked to the class and said, well, if you ever feel like, you got nowhere to go outside of high school, the military is always hiring. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So he passed out his business card to everybody. And I gave him a call on a whim and said, hey, let me, let's talk. And, and better than anybody, Navy military recruiters in general, they're vampires, man. They'll go in, they'll lie to you, they'll tell you how great it is and how much you're going to see the world and all this other stuff, right? And I remember, nothing is there. It's funny because when it was pushed to me, it was not like, 20 years this or benefits this, whatever. It's just like, hey, it's only 4 years. Give it 4 years and you'll like it, get out. I'm like, oh, okay, well, doesn't sound too bad. It sounds like a pretty decent idea. And I remember I went to MEPS under the delayed entry program. And I signed up. It was like, this is in April 2001. And my ship date was September 21st. And I remember my mom being really paranoid after I signed up. It's just like, well, what if you go to war? What if you get hurt? I'm like, Mom, this is the safest time in the world. We're good. Like, nothing's going on right now. It's the easiest time in the world. And I remember, like, the morning of 9/11, she busted through my door, didn't open it, just kicked straight open. I told you, I'm like, well, shit, I can't do nothing about it now. I'm in, you know what I mean? What am I going to do? Just not go? So that's kind of what made me enlist. I had nowhere else to really go. So I thought it was a good idea, in hindsight. Well, actually, no, in hindsight, I'm glad I went in. I'm really glad I went in. But, looking back on how naive I was to a situation that could occur. Right. I'm just like, would I tell my son to enlist today? Probably not. Right. I went through a little bit when I was there, and I wouldn't wish it upon a lot of people. So, but in general, like, I've been able to benefit extremely well from it. So yeah, that's kind of what made me get in.
Yeah, no, same for me. Like, I know when I went in, I went to college before the Navy, and the degree I got wasn't really getting me anywhere. Working at this gas station. And then they thought, you know what, why not? Why don't I go talk to them? And then budget cuts happened and my job got cut. So I was like, well, guess I might as well do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that, I think a lot of people that go in, because when you're a lot of people go in when they're like just fresh out of high school, or like early young men and women, like 18, 19, 20 years old, will just be at that point in their life. It's just like, well, I might as well. Right. And that's really what the mindset of a lot of people, I think, that join are in. I love to tell you the story about how I saw the planes attack that building, and I said, I got to fight for this country. And that's just not the case. I went in because, I knew I had no direction in life. So I was like, I'm okay. I might as well. You know what I mean? Same kind of story as you, where I just had nothing going on. And I went in, and, here I am.
There's also kind of the secondary stuff that, I thought about after the fact that I was already going to go do it. Like, the military history on my mom's side of the family, carrying that on was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So there was that.
Well, it's exciting because for me, it was like completely the opposite. I had like nobody in my family, at the time. My mom was like rest her soul, she was a raging alcoholic, an off and on drug addict. My dad got in trouble a lot for like gambling. He right after I enlisted, he got thrown in jail for accessory to murder. As my family was just not good. You know what I mean? My childhood wasn't good. So I didn't have a lot of like real reason to go in other than the fact I just didn't want to end up a failure. Right. Yeah. I just didn't want to be a failure. And all I wanted to do was just make something of my life. And that's why I went in. Yeah. That's funny because some people will go in like your story, you go in, because of your family's expectations. Right. And then other people will go in spite of their family's expectations. Yeah.
I've heard stories of that.
Yeah. Yeah. But either way, I mean, the end result is we were both there, and I feel, and I can't speak for everybody that ever serves, but I feel I contributed something meaningful to the Navy when I was there.
I'd like to think the same as far as myself.
Yeah,
definitely. And I there might have been times during it that I'm like, fuck, I can't wait to be done.
Yeah.
But now I look back on, I don't concentrate so much on the crazy stuff that kind of accelerated my want to get out. Yeah. But I look back, I mean, there was plenty of good times like any job. There was parts I liked, parts I didn't.
Sure. Yeah, it really, a lot of people will put a lot of backwards spin on the military life that aren't, they're obviously not in the military, former military, don't really understand that it's pretty much a normal job, right? The difference is you can't go home for as much as a normal job does. Then of course, if you're ever in a situation where, you're in a war zone for whatever reason, I could attest to that. Then, that situation's obviously a little different, but for the most part, the military is just a regular job. There's a lot of rights that you don't have as a normal citizen. And then there's a lot of home that you don't get to go to. Right. But if you can deal with a regular job, you can deal with the military.
Oh, definitely. And like we kind of started off at the beginning where, with, your start and where I actually met you at New Wave Pro. You got any fond memories of that? I know we talked like right around the time that I was going to be getting back from deployment about the last New Wave show, because I'm like, ooh, cage match, because that is still the one type of match that I have not seen.
Really? Wow. That's crazy.
I was like, I want to go. And then, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to be there. Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because we only did one cage match in the entire run of New Wave, and that was the last show. That's why we wanted to do it. We said at least we should have one at least before we close up shop. The cage, so that whole last show was a very fond memory of mine. I just thought it was incredible to see that much support for the product at the end of it. There was a lot of support in the beginning, and there was a lot of support at the end, and it kind of fluctuated in the middle. Sometimes we draw great crowds, and sometimes we wouldn't. My absolute proudest moment in New Wave was the angle that we did with SoCal Crazy and Rotten Ronnie Thrash, where they were having some sort of a match, and somebody ended up hitting SoCal Crazy with a car. And this is something that's just like, nobody had expected it to go like that south, and the way we planned it and rehearsed it, and I mean like a lot of rehearsal. We did a lot of rehearsal, did a lot of promos for it. And we knew, the way I always wrote shows was I would write it almost from the end to the beginning, right? Like, this is where I want to get to. How many shows do we need to have to get there and not have it drag on, right? So I said, okay, well, for example, I wanted to put the belt on SoCal Crazy. Okay, well, SoCal Crazy right now is jerking the curtain. How do I get him from jerking the curtain to the belt, right? What kind of match do I need to have, and so on and so forth. But I would say that's probably like probably my proudest moment in New Wave. There's so many, man. There's so many cool moments that we had with that company. We created a new belt called the Rapid Division title, which
I was when
were you there?
I was there in the crowd for that when you crowned the first one.
There you go. Oh, that's awesome. The ladder match, right? The ladder match. So we had like a 4-way ladder match for the Rapid Division title that I just thought was incredible, like incredible. Because it's funny because we started running out of the Boys and Girls Club, but the YMCA in downtown San Diego.
Yeah,
and we got a couple. There's a couple people there. I was like maybe like 40 people in the crowd or whatever, but nowhere near what we wanted it to be. It's like, shit, this is a nice venue. It should be full. We obviously doing something wrong. You know what I mean? So we took a couple months off and we came back with this show called the Return. And in the Return, we had, it must have been like at least 200, 300 people there. Huge crowd. And then that's what kind of sparked their interest and said, okay, we need a new belt. We need a new, because we want to develop new storylines and we want to build up new characters. Right. So that's when we created the Rapid Division thing. But there was a lot of things that happened at New Wave that I wasn't even responsible for. It's funny. I love to take credit for everything that happened in New Wave. It's not me. It's me and my tag partner is Ryan Stone, who put together a lot of that stuff, made a lot of decisions, especially when I was deployed in my last deployment. There was, I think, 6 shows that went on without my say so in anything. I remember like pissed off at him one time. I wrote him. It's like, why'd you turn this guy heel? But yeah, so many memories, man. It's cool to build it from the ground up. It really is, to generate your own fan base, to have people chant like New Wave Pro, buy T-shirts, and it's an incredible feeling because you really, in a way, you built up your own family. The fans are like a family sometimes. It's crazy. Man.
Yeah. Speaking of, couple things. One, bringing up SoCal Crazy. I actually recorded with him on Tuesday.
Oh, he's awesome. He's awesome.
Oh, he was always one of my favorites when I was down there, and still is. I know he's got the health issue right now.
Yeah. But and I don't know how public. In fact, I don't want to spoil anything for your future interview, but I know he has an update on that. So I'll let him kind of spill the beans. Yeah, SoCal Crazy is my buddy. Where is it? I can hardly see it. There you go. There it is. Yeah, SoCal Crazy is my buddy, man. We all got, it was me, Ryan Stone, and SoCal Crazy all got that same tattoo with his mask and then the Navy hat that was like right next to it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I've been texting him, since I found out that something was wrong. It's just like, man, dude, what the hell's going on with you, dude? Like, you're too young. But yeah, I think he had a lot of the thing about him is that he had a lot of issues anyway, right? He just had a lot of like health complications anyway. I remember one time he in a match he literally broke his tooth off, right? And then I don't even know if he's got it fixed to this day. He just goes on the next time and starts to wrestle again. He can wrestle like broken bones and stuff and still go. The fact that he's taken time off for this recent health issue is just like a little bit surprising to me. But without a doubt, one of, if not the most talented independent workers that I've ever had the privilege of knowing. And he's my friend. That's crazy to think about. He's a friend of mine. So yeah, I still kind of mark out when I see him at shows, especially if he's like in the main event and people are like cheering for him. And it's just like, I know that guy. I go drinking with that guy. He's been over my house. Cool dude, man. I love the guy to death. He's like my brother.
Like I said, he was and still is one of my favorites. And when I reached out to him, I was kind of like, I know he's got, like we mentioned, so like, I don't know if he will, but what the heck? If I get the chance to talk to one of my favorites, why the hell not?
Yeah. And you'll see, and when I don't know how much you've actually like talked to him face to face, but you'll see the incredible amount of like humbleness he brings when he talks, because as somebody of his prowess, his stature, right, could be a snob and nobody would bat an eye, but he's just an incredibly humble person, just a genuinely good human being. And you'll see that, dude. I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to have him on the show. I think he's going to be really, you're going to get taken back by how incredibly like humane he is. Good dude.
Oh, I mean, even in the interactions I've had with him since asking, I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
You know,
he's a cool guy. Now you're going to love him, man. I love him to death. Like a brother. He still bugs me to bring back New Wave. He'll text me every so often. I want to bring back New Wave. Okay, I'll let you know, bro.
I remember hearing about a few of those.
Yeah.
But
one day.
And we brought up your tag partner, Ryan Stone, with Anchors Away. That was, I remember, first show that I actually saw you guys wrestle in was that that same night as the ladder match for the Rapid Division title, the first one.
Sure.
And got any cool stories from your days with him?
We have. Okay, so he's still probably like my best friend to this day. He moved out to Colorado a few years ago, so we haven't like really hung out. I haven't seen him in person in years, but so I'll tell you how Anchors Away came to be in the first place. It's kind of funny. So I was wrestling. Well, actually, okay. So there's a huge story. I'm not going to waste all of your time on it, but maybe we'll do like a part 2 one day. But there's a huge story behind how New Wave came to be in general, right? And he had a lot to do with that. But how Anchors Away started, I was essentially, long story short, I was I just come back from basic training, and I was stationed out in San Diego. And I was trying to find wrestling schools out in San Diego because I wanted to continue wrestling. So I found this guy. His name is the Colorado kid, Mike Rapata, and he had a school out in Oceanside, which is, I was living in Chula Vista at the time, and that's probably like a 40-mile drive. So I contacted him and said, hey, I see you got a promotion, you got a school. Can I come out and work for you? And he told me on the phone, he's just like, do you know who I am? I'm like, no, I've never heard of you. I'm sorry. He's like, well, search my name and you'll find out about me. So I searched his name. I'm like, okay. So he's a former NWA champion and, he's done a lot of cool things. He'll tell you stories about his first drop kick in China and a bunch of other, stuff that he just like boasts about that really at this point, nobody cares.
Yeah.
But he had a school, he had a promotion and he guys obviously knows how to work. So I was like, okay, well, this is where I want to go. So I went to the school and I met, that's where I met Trevor, who was Ryan Stone. I met Trevor. And he was wrestling at the time. He was wrestling with this blue tee. Oh no, it wasn't a blue shirt. It was a San Diego Chargers jersey and like these kick pants. These they call them slap pants in wrestling. The pleather pants. And I remember he had Ryan Stone on the sides of his thighs. He had Ryan Stone on both sides, and his shirt would cover up the R on the Ryan Stone. So everybody called him Jan Stone. So everybody kind of made fun of him. He was a good guy, right? But couldn't really get over because the promotion that we were wrestling with was just awful anyway. But he wasn't really getting over, but he did this spot that I thought was really funny. He was wrestling SoCal Crazy and he whipped him with his belt, or so he took his belt off, he whipped him with it. And then he went to go whip him again. SoCal Crazy ducked and he pulled his pants down. And then Ryan Stone like tripped over his pants and fell on his face. And the crowd ate it up and loved it. I was just like, that's funny. That's really good. I'm going to steal that. So anyway, so I started working with this other lucha promoter. His name is Oscar. And he started getting me booked in a lot of places in like South San Diego and Mexicali and TJ and all these like lucha places. Right. And he had me tag him with this other guy that I met at the promotion. His name was Jebediah, who was this hillbilly redneck character. And we would go and, we would tag because almost everything in lucha is tags for some reason. So we would go, we would tag and, I would get a lot of heat and Jebediah wouldn't really get much. He wasn't very good. He wasn't very athletic and he couldn't wrestle very well. Right. So he wasn't very beneficial to the team. So I called up Trevor one day and I said, listen, I need a partner to do these lucha shows with. My current partner isn't very good. right? What if we change your entire gimmick? We'll get rid of the Charger shit. We'll make you a bad guy. I'll put you in navy blues, and we'll call you Petty Officer Ryan Stone. And he said, oh, I don't know about that, and we'll see, and blah blah blah. But we did one show together, the first show we did together, and we were over like you wouldn't believe. Like people hated us. And so we recreated that spot where we whipped somebody and we got our pants torn down, and but it was both of us at the same time this time, you know. And we did all these really funny spots, and we said, like, this could be something, like, we can do something with this. So we called ourselves Anchors Away. And then we, just kind of took off from there. But as Anchors Away, man, we did so many cool things. And I mean, at the peak of us like tagging, and we were like white hot in the SoCal scene, right? We were getting like, double booked on Saturday and Sunday. You know what I mean? We'd be going to LA, we'd go to Arizona, and we go to all these places and just like tag team. And it was always the same match. It was always the exact same match, the same layout. We throw in like one or two ad lib things, but it was always the same match, but people would just like eat it up. But anyway, so we did this spot, and this is what sticks out in my mind is probably my favorite moment, even though it's like really disgusting. Actually, there's two. We were in this Elks Lodge, and we do this spot, and you have to kind of use your imagination here, but we do this spot where I get set up in what's known as the Tree of Woe, where, somebody puts your ass on the top turnbuckle, and then you hang down, and then your foot's caught underneath the top turnbuckle, and so you're hanging, upside down. And then they body slammed Ryan Stone, and his legs were open like towards my face, and the good guys would go out and they'd pull his legs, so my face would hit his crotch, so then, after that happened, I would I would flip over, and then we'd be in this 69 position. People would eat it up. They just thought it was the most hilarious thing in the world. Anyway, on that particular night when we did that, he farted. And I mean, it was the most disgusting, vibrated my mustache fart I've ever experienced. And I remember, like, I jumped off of him, and he broke character, like, as all get out. He laughed his ass off, even though we're supposed to be getting humiliated and stuff, laughed his ass off. But that's probably like one of my favorite. The other one was probably getting thrown into the lake. We got thrown into this lake in, I want to say it was Riverside, where we were earlier in the night. We were facing this tag team for the belts, and we ended up, we lost the match, but we stole the belts. This is like early in the night, like second match. And then like they broke for intermission, like 2 or 3 matches later. And then we came out with just our underwear on and the belts wrapped around our chests, right? As if we were going to, like, go home with them, you know what I mean? But they caught us as we were changing, right? So they beat us up throughout the whole crowd, and then they beat us up outside, and the whole crowd got up, all followed us out, and they followed us to this area of the lake where they gave us a couple punches, and then they were going to give us like this third real big punch. And then they kind of looked at each other like, wait a minute. And they took the belts off of us. I'm like, well, let's not get these wet. You know what I mean? And then they punched us in, and boom, like, like logs, we went into the lake. And, we got out, the lake. First of all, we didn't know how deep the lake was. We were scared of it. It was freezing that night. But I just thought that the spot would be hilarious,
Oh yeah.
So we did the spot, and we were crawling out on the dirt or whatever. Everybody's like chanting at us, calling us crybabies and stuff like that. And then my pants, my underwear that I was wearing rolled down on my backside. So like my ass was like out in front of all these, like, these families and kids and stuff. And then finally, like, they got escorted back to the show. But that's probably my favorite moment. Like even after the fart, that was probably my favorite moment as Anchors Away. We had some great matches, man. We ended up winning, the SoCal Pro belts. We were SoCal Tag Team Champions 5 times. We were EWF champions like twice. I won't count New Wave because that was our promotion, but we wore the belts once there. Millennium Pro Wrestling, we were the champs there twice. Lucha, at least one Lucha promotion, we were the champions. I mean, it's just, we did so much good stuff. We wrestled so many cool people, including like SoCal. We'd had a lot of feuds with SoCal Crazy. We did some stuff with the Young Bucks, which was really fun. We did so much stuff over the course of the time that we were tagging together. It was a real bummer. Like, it was kind of somber. Like, the last night we were tagging was like, it really hit home. Like, I remember, like, Trevor was like in tears in the middle of the ring when it was all over. like, shit, we're not going to be able to do this again, you know? But hey, you know, that's what happens when you get old and fat, which is like, okay, well, let's just not rip off the fans anymore. But yeah, that's probably, that I have a million like different stories from Anchors Away, man. And it was, to me, for not being incredibly athletic, right? Because we never were, in my best days, I was never athletic. I couldn't do a leapfrog to save my life, right? I could work a little bit in the ring. I could do some basic stuff, but we had this chemistry together, man, that we would get crowds to absolutely hate us. And it was magic. It was magic, man. Especially for being like, again, I'm not athletic and stuff, knowing that we had better reactions than some of the best top athletic talent on the card, ahead of the main events sometimes, just like knowing that we did that, even when we were on, we were in SoCal Pro main event. We wrestled a ladder match for the tag team belts, and I ended up going through a table off the ladder onto the outside. There was a table on the outside with Trevor on the table. And that was a cool moment. So many cool moments, man. Anchors Away was just amazing. I'd do anything to have like one more, one more match.
Well, speaking of when we were talking there about that last match, what led up to the decision to make that the end?
So we had there was two very big life changes that were happening with both of us. Trevor he got offered to move out of state to Colorado. That was primarily the reason. I would say that's primarily the reason. The second reason outside of that is my wife, I want to say just at the time, became pregnant, and we had found out that she was having triplets. It was like, okay, I'm going to have no time to do anything, So it was that. And plus at that point we were kind of done anyway. A few months leading up to that, we were done anyway, because, we were just like, okay, well, we're, maybe wrestling is kind of passing us by, and, we shouldn't be hogging up the limelight for younger people that, could do well. So, so we were just kind of sitting in the wings anyway. And then when I think it was Trevor that said like, hey, I'm moving out to Colorado, I said, well, let's come back for at least, one more. So we did. We made a return to SoCal Pro and challenged like the hottest team that was there at the time. And the next month we had a match for the belts, and, ended up losing, and, that's all she wrote. But yeah, it was really somber. Believe me, I didn't want to go. Even now, I still feel like I could probably return, I could come back. I can do some stuff. But at the time, it was just like all these life changes were happening for the both of us. It's just like, neither one of us are going to make the money that we're making in our regular jobs in professional wrestling. Right. Unless unless we got like WWE type status, right? AEW wasn't a thing at the time, and TNA was, TNA. So there really wasn't a lot of money to be had, right? At least in the local scenes. So we felt that it was probably in our best interest to go out with reason instead of just kind of fading into the darkness. So that was our way to do it.
All right. Well, going back to the whole you being a part of the tag team, what are some of your thoughts on like the current state of tag team wrestling? Because there's a lot of places out there like that don't really put too much of an emphasis on it. There's a lot of places that we don't have anything for these two, so tag team.
Yeah.
And then other places that like they got a pretty deep roster of tag teams.
So this is the way when I was growing up, right? When I was growing up in wrestling, you had established teams. You had, the Bushwhackers, the Rock and Roll Express. You had, Legion of Doom, and all these tag teams. As I got older into the Attitude Era, tag teams started turning more into factions, where you had Degeneration X, and you had, the Nation of Domination, and then you had the NWO and all this other stuff. So you had this emphasis there that a multiple group thing or multiple people group was, a part of the show. it doesn't seem like that really happens anymore. And I have, like I said, I haven't watched WWE in, at this point, probably years. So I couldn't speak to that. And so there might be a great hot tag team in WWE. I don't know of it. I know that the New Day was probably the last thing that I remember, that was like really good and organic in that company. And I know that's been disbanded a little bit, right? So,
Yeah.
But as far as tag teams are concerned, right, in my opinion, is that tag teams really should be a 2-person team that is one particular unit, right? So I was always fond of tag teams that had the exact same clothes, right? Did the exact types of move sets and things like that, talked the same way, did the promos the same, had the exact same cause. So to me anyway, I hate the idea of throwing random people together in tag teams. I know when I was working for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and I was doing commentary for them, they had a couple tag teams that were strictly tag teams, and they were good. They were, I'd say that they're great, like great talents, necessarily good. What I mean is the emphasis was there on it being a tag team. You know what I mean? So you had, these degenerate kids, and then you had this happy family that was like always happy about everything or whatever. But you had all these teams that were compiled of people that were able to form this one unit and present it as one unit. Right. Yeah. So as far as tag teams are concerned, right, to me anyway, you have to treat it as one entity. And if you're just throwing random people together, well, it's not a tag team, Yeah. That's just my thought about it.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I'm not a fan of the guys that, some of which actually end up getting the belts. And it's like the only reason you're a tag team is, like I mentioned earlier, they don't have anything else for you. Right.
They just kind of threw you together, and now you're one match. I guess we can pay you half. I don't know how they work out their pay system. But yeah, it's kind of like it's the idea of I know that you're there just because, right?
Yeah.
Not because you came in together and have this cause that you're fighting for. You're there because, right?
Yeah.
And what makes you want to root for you at that point, or be against you, right? Like I said, I came from that generation of wrestling. It's going back before that. You're talking about like Killer Bees, and or the newer, like in the new generation, you had the Beverly Brothers, and or the Hollywood Blondes in WCW, right? These were great teams, that really kind of had this same exact goal, right? But yeah, to me, tag team, first of all, tag team wrestling is a little bit more complicated than regular wrestling, right?
Yeah.
When the actual match structure is a little bit different, but the promos and all that stuff is all pretty much the exact same. The exact same thing. You have this team that really believes this thing, and this team that believes this thing, and they're obviously clashing with each other, and then they go at it. It's the same thing as like a one-on-one, angle or whatever the case is. But tag team wrestling in general, and you can always tell people that are thrown together, because a tag team like wrestling, me and Trevor, we would always say, like, we want to be the team that is more known for our double team moves, right? So not just throw them in and give them a double clothesline. Every time we tagged, we had a set of like probably 5 or 6 different things that we came up with and said, this is how we're going to tag, right? We're going to tag. And as soon as I'm tagged in, we're going to do this. And as soon as you're tagged in, we're going to do this. It was never off the fly, like, okay, whip him in, give him a double elbow. But never, nothing like that, right? We have a specific sequence of moves that we do throughout the match, and that just made us look like we meshed together better. That's what a tag team is. It's a mesh. It's a mesh of 2 beings into one.
Definitely. Yeah. So we talked. You don't necessarily watch too much of WWE lately. Is there some of the current crop of stuff out there that you do pay attention to?
You think that? No, like, so you have AEW as a really good alternative to WWE, right? And this is, so look, and I'm alone in my thoughts. So I'm not speaking for the rest of the wrestling fan base out here, right?
Yeah.
When TNA started getting popularity, right? I'm going to start there. When TNA started getting popularity, and everybody was like, okay, well, finally, this is something a little bit different than WWE, right? They had their own sequence. They had their own roster of guys. And, it was looking like, this is going to be a very special thing, similar to like WCW had, right? They have their own little roster of guys.
Yeah.
So, and then what did they do? They started bringing in ex-WWE talent.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of them too. A lot of them.
Oh,
and that made all their own homegrown guys look bad. Right. Because they want to obviously put over their bigger talent. So if you really want to put over, again, I'm alone in this. So don't, I don't want everybody to think like, oh, they speak for everybody in wrestling. If you really want to grow your own homegrown talent, you bring in somebody on the outside, right, to put over your guy, and then they leave. That's the goal. Right. But here's the thing is that TNA became annotated to this hypnosis that WWE puts out, where this particular talent is what's going to draw you money. Right. So instead of putting in the work and building their guys to a point where they're going to be at the same level as these WWE guys, you just brought in the WWE guys. So you brought in you brought in Hulk Hogan, you brought in Booker T, and then you bring in Kurt Angle or whatever the case is. Right. Yeah. So fast forward to AEW, which had their own roster of guys. Right. They had, even some deflectors, if you want, or detractors, if you want to call them that, like Cody Rhodes. Right. But for the most part, you had the Bucks. And then you had the Lucha Bros, and then you had the Jurassic. What was it? Jurassic Express? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Jurassic. So speaking of which, I helped train that the kid. What's his name? I'm so bad at wrestling. With the fluffy hair, the kid, the short one.
Really short one?
Luke Perry's kid or something. What's his name?
Well, for a while there, they had it was Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Mark.
Jungle Boy. Yeah, it's Jungle Boy. So I think I could be misspeaking, but I'm pretty sure that's Luke Perry's kid. And okay, so I helped train him at least one time. I was there for help train him when he was just starting out. He knew the guy who initially trained me. Anyway, so that's me just tossing out dimes out there. I'm important. So anyway, what the hell were we talking about? I was so excited about talking about my own fame. Oh yeah, the local. Okay, so anyway, so you had your own group of guys, right? And then what did you do? You started bringing in other people. It's the same thing TNA did, right? You brought in the other people. You made the product a lot bigger than what I think it warranted at the time. Even you did this one, you did this one big show in an arena, did great. Did another show in the arena, did great, right? And now you're putting on this weekly show, right, on TNT. Okay, so now you're going to go to arena after arena after arena. And now what am I watching? I'm watching more ex-WWE guys, right? So you have Rusev from the Big Show and who knows who's coming back there now. But and then you had guest appearances like Jake Roberts, and you had Bret Hart and all these people. So where are these people coming from? Right? They're coming from essentially your competition, right? So what are you doing? You're giving your competition validation, right? From showing that they grew these talent and now they're over here at your roster. So you're doing two things. One, you are paying more money than you need to pay for talent, right? And two, you're doing a disservice to all your homegrown guys whose main goal was to make the company a lot different from the WWE. All right. And it started out that way because it was great. Remember the roar, the buzz when AEW started coming to town. It was like, this is incredible, right? This is so different from WWE. And the more you look at it, the more it's not. It is becoming the exact same thing, right?
I can see it.
Yeah. And again, I this is just me probably being bitter about the wrestling business. But, and I feel like the more and more I talk about wrestling, the more I feel like one of those old guys when I was young, like, oh, well, Chief J Strongbow, he was the man, I'm like, screw Chief J Strongbow. Like, who the hell is that guy? You know what I mean? But, and I'm trying to give and I'm trying to put my input in when I was a kid, wrestling was really good, but it was, right. Mm-hmm. You had these rating wars when you're talking 4.5s and stuff like that. It doesn't even compare to today. So a couple of things are mixed up, right? And sorry, I'll go off on a tangent here because I get real passionate about this stuff. With AEW, my biggest gripe with AEW is that they started to conform to the norm. That's what it appears like to me. Even when they brought in CM Punk, think about it. Now, CM Punk the return is huge, right? A couple weeks later, it's huge. His first couple matches are going to be huge. And then what's going to happen? He's going to fizzle in, right? The luster is going to die down, and he's going to become another person on the roster, albeit high on the roster, right? But it's still on the roster of the second best promotion, right? Who incidentally is bringing in all the guys from the top best promotion, right? So that's one thing. Two, you have an overabundance of wrestling now. You have wrestling on at this point 6 days a week, right? At your disposal. Yeah, it's crazy. And when you're talking like when wrestling was limited to what it was, when Raw and Nitro first came out, right? It was an hour-long show, right? It was an hour, just an hour, right? Then you had your Saturday morning stuff on WWE, then you had your WWF, your Saturday morning stuff on WCW, and that was it. That was the wrestling you got, right? So you didn't become so desensitized to it, right? And now it's everywhere. You have your SmackDowns, you have your NXTs, you have your TNTs, you got your pay-per-views once a month when you only used to have pay-per-views 4 times a year. You have this overabundance, and now every city in North America has a wrestling promotion out now, right? So how long are you going to watch the product before you become bored? And I think that's my main problem is I became very bored, right? I became bored of wrestling. So what I say is I would go to a live show, especially an independent show, watch the show and really appreciate the work. Really, really, really appreciate the work. Anything on TV, I just can't stand because it's all the same. And that's just, to me, that is the biggest problem. Even like NXT, which was a great alternative to WWE, even though it's the same product, right? They started doing the stuff like the camera angles now became the exact same. And now you have a hard cam and now you have all these vignettes and promos and this drama that we just didn't need before. And it was fine before that. You know what I mean? So this is the state of wrestling as it's becoming today. So I've become fairly bitter towards it. So to answer your question initially, no, there's like nothing. There's literally nothing that I can necessarily get into now. I hear stories that interest me, like, hey, Cody Rhodes might be making a return to WWE, And so my first thought is, okay, it's going to be Mania. I guarantee you it's going to be Mania, right? Okay, it's going to be Mania. So he's going to do his little thing at Mania. And again, just like CM Punk, he's going to come out, turn's going to be huge, right? Because that's the competition. And it's going to fizzle out and Cody Rhodes is going to become Cody Rhodes again. So I get interested in things like that. Is it enough to make me get a Peacock subscription or a WWE Network subscription and watch it? No. I remember the day I canceled my WWE Network subscription was they did something. I can't remember. It was someone when they were pushing Roman Reigns down everybody's throats, which is, I'm sure, still going on. But as this great good guy, right? And I remember hearing the boos in the audience and how much they hated Roman Reigns and this incredible lack of empathy from the head writers and say Vince McMahon, WWE, to listen to the audience and say, we don't want this anymore. That's why so many people gravitated over to the alternative, right? Is because they were tired of having stuff pushed down their throats. This is, AEW is a fan-made promotion. Right. Yeah. They're going to reintroduce this idea of wrestling to us where the fans actually, really get what they want. And for the most part, to their credit, I will say that they're doing that very, very well. But I remember just getting, as a point, I just got insulted. Right. Just like, why do you keep on doing this thing that people don't like to see? Right. Just for the sake of you doing it. Right. And you look back at like the history of WWF and WWE. They'd always bring in, like when they bring in like WCW guys or, when they bought WCW or they brought in the NWO, like what happened with all that, right? What happened with all that? The WWE guys always ended up on top every single time. They'd come in, like this great return of Sting. I was there for that WrestleMania when Sting faced Triple H, which was I thought was going to be amazing, right? And then, Triple H did all this shit to Sting beforehand. And then, Sting ended up still going under at the end of the match. And like, I know that was because like Vince McMahon was like, I'm not going to lose. All right. WWE is going to win this one. And to me, anyway, I just got like really insulted with the product in general during that time. And so I started liking things like AEW when it came out. And then the more and more I saw it conforming to the normalities of the WWE, I just said, I can't watch it anymore. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. There's like nothing on the major scene that I have any interest in.
No, I can I can understand there's some of those aspects you brought up. I can't say I can argue with it.
No.
So, thing I'd like to do to kind of do for the last little bit here is a little bit of a kind of a speed round sort of thing.
Sure.
Bring up a few people, maybe a promotion. You give me your first thoughts on them.
Okay.
First one we kind of already talked about, SoCal Crazy.
Oh, the best human being in the world. Love him. It's an absolute dream.
Secondly, another guy that was a favorite of mine from my time down there that starting to make a bit of a comeback, B-Boy.
Oh man, I got stories about B-Boy. We had a falling out, and it's my fault, and it's a speed round, so I won't drag it on too long. I became very interested in my own personal relationship with my now wife. And I pushed a lot of people to the side. He was one of them, and I feel kind of bad that happened. When I lost my son, he actually, after not speaking to me for years, like he tweeted out like my son's GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
A genuinely great human being. I had the most ridiculous parties with B-Boy. He's a cool dude, super famous, and I'd like to think of him still as a friend. I should reach out after this. Let's say hi to him. Good dude.
Oh yeah, no, when I think I ordered that GCW Hammerstein show when I saw out for that Battle Royal, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Good talent. Crazy good.
Oh yeah. And lastly, promotion we talked about, SoCal Pro.
My absolute favorite promotion in SoCal. The owner, whose name is Jeff Dino, I don't think has worked a regular job since I've known him. Never. He's always had SoCal Pro money. He's one of the very few promoters that can do it right. He brings in fans consistently, and he has an incredibly thought out written show. The actual promotion is like a family, unlike I would say, probably similar to maybe like PWG down here. They have like a real specific fan base that go to it. An incredible promotion. I absolutely adore SoCal Pro. Probably better than New Wave. They did it. They did it good. They did really good. I love SoCal Pro.
Oh yeah, I always love the shows I got to go to there.
Yeah, they're coming back. I think in I think April. I want to say next month they're coming back.
Yeah.
I got to announce for a few shows, and yeah, they're cool. I keep on begging to come back, and I know I'm too fat to work, so I got to keep working.
All right, so that's about all I had. Want to give you a chance to your social medias and stuff, so anybody that ends up watching can go ahead and give you a follow.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you can follow me at Andrew Jassick. AndrewJassick on my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that, YouTube. Yeah, it's all the exact same. It's Andrew Jassick. There's only one of me in the world. It's pretty exciting. So go follow me, please. I'm almost at 100,000 followers. I appreciate you having me on, man. I really do. It's been good catching up with you.
Oh yeah, been great catching up with you. And like I said, you're basically my introduction to independent wrestling. So
I'm happy to have done it, man. Welcome to an amazing world. It's cool to have you.
All right. Well, thank you for taking. I gotta figure out how to stop this video. I'm gonna edit that out.
Edit that out. There you go.